So I was laying on my bed. Had this strange thought, am I going to be able to have a family and be like this? And I realized, no way. During that same time, there was a young lady. Her name was Rhonda, that I had been asking out for about 6 months, and she always turned me down. Said, "No, I'm not going to go out with you, Jim." And she was from school. I was in high school, of course, and I kept asking her out, and Priscilla wasn't in my life yet. And then suddenly she says to me one day, "Well, do you want to come to church with me?" And I said, "Well, sure, I'll go to church with you." And so during that time, there was a thing that was called the Jesus Movement. And the Jesus Movement was a bunch of hippies and a bunch of people coming to Jesus and their lives being transformed. And it was just really a crazy time. It was really a very interesting time. So I didn't know that Rhonda was a Christian, and she asked me to church. And I told my friend Mike, I said, "Mike, hey, Rhonda agreed that I could go with her to church." And Mike looks at me and he says, Jim, be careful. No. Don't go to church with her, Jim. If you go to church, you're going to get saved. I said, "Mike, come on, no way. I'm not going to get saved, Mike. I'm just going to go to church with Rhonda. That's it." And Mike said, No, Jim. And I said, "No, don't worry, Mike. I'm not going to get saved. I'm just going to go to church. I'm going to go with her." So the day came, and I went to church with Rhonda. It was a little tiny church of about 80 seats, and there's probably 100 young ex-hippies packed into that place, and it was a pretty exciting place. But the preacher was a terrible preacher. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. In fact, he was turning red, and I didn't know what he was saying and all that. But I'll tell you, God was there and met with me. And I'm sitting there at the end of the service, and my heart is just pounding. Right after he finished preaching, my heart is pounding. And I'm hearing this phrase in my heart and my mind: "Jim, you're not right with me. Jim, you're not right with me." Over and over. And I'm realizing God is saying to me, I'm not right with him. And so, strangely enough, somebody came up to me. I'm sitting in this pew, this seat. Somebody walked up to me and said, "Jim, do you want to get right with God?" And I was smart enough to know not to say no to things about God. In fact, I had been baptized twice, kind of wanting to know God. When I was a kid and nothing had changed. The first time I got baptized, I said, I want to follow God. Got baptized, nothing different. A couple years later, I said, well, something didn't work, so maybe if I do it again, maybe something will happen. Nothing happened. And then I went on with my life. But I did have this thing towards God. And so I'm thinking, man, I don't want to say yes. I don't want to say no. Okay, I don't know, was my answer. I don't know. The person said, okay, and walked away. Another person came up to me and says, "Hey, Jim, do you want to get right with God?" And again, my heart is pounding inside of me. I'm about to burst inside of me, but I just said, no, I don't know. And a few minutes more went by, and somebody else came up to me and said, "Jim, do you want to get right with God?" And I just said yes. And when I said yes, it was like a dam broke. And I opened up my heart. Somebody described it to me later as if my tears could fill up a bucket. And I opened up my heart and I said, "Yes, God, I don't understand any of this. I don't know what it means. I don't know what's going on. But if you're there and if you're real, I want to be right with you." And that night, my heart changed. And I'm going to talk to you about that change here in a minute. So that night, when I said, "Yes, here I am, God," I asked him to forgive me. I asked him to come and live in me. And something happened, and I surrendered my life to him. And something happened, and my life changed. I went home that night. Well, first of all, let me describe the feeling I had that night when I said yes to Jesus. It was as if an anvil, a 2,000-pound rock, had been sitting on my shoulders and pressing me down, and it was as if that was completely lifted from me, and I was free, and I was new. And there flooded into my heart peace that I had never known, joy that was unbelievable. And so I was just completely set free. I went home that night, saw my little sister. She's 5 years younger than me. She was 12 years old at the time. She said, "Jim, what happened to you?" And I said, "Oh, Brenda, it's so wonderful. Jesus forgave me. I came to him. He filled my heart. He changed me." And she says, "Can I have that?" And I said, "Sure." And so we prayed right there, and she came to Jesus. Her life has never been the same since. Even to this day, she thanks me. "Jim, thank you for letting your little sister pray and come to Jesus with you." And it's amazing. But the story goes on here. That night I slept like I had never slept before. Of course, I didn't need any pot at that point. I slept like a baby. I woke up. I went to school the next day, and I'm walking towards Mike, who is probably about 20 yards away. And he sees me coming towards him, and I'm just like so excited about what had just happened to me. And I'm just walking up to Mike, and he looks at me, and his eyes get big, and he just points at me, and he says, "You got saved. You got saved." And I said, "Oh, Mike, you got to know. It's so amazing, Mike. It's so amazing." Well, Mike didn't really understand or anything like that, but I'm going to tell you something. My life was completely changed. Now, it's not to say that I didn't have challenges in my life. I did. In fact, a couple of times I had real challenges. Started to get around some of my old friends, partied a little bit. One time I was so... one of the things about coming to Jesus is that he sets your spirit free. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but you're so free. And so the restraints were off, and I was free. So when I got back around my old friends, and one time Mike was breaking a key at his house, and I was living at his house at that time. And he says, "Hey, Jim, join us." And I said, "Well, I'm not a partier anymore." He says, "Well, just come on, hang out." So I was there. I started to drink a little wine, too much wine, and smoke a little too much pot. I was so messed up. I was even worse than I normally was. I got down in the middle of the floor in that party with about 20 people. Got down and repented, said, "God, forgive me. God, forgive me." And some of the other guys who had experienced Jesus before also got down on the floor and, "God, forgive me." And it was actually pretty cool, because about a week later, some of those guys were actually killed in a car accident. And I know that they had come to Jesus. But anyway, my life had changed. Not without struggles, but my heart had changed. Things were made new inside of me. And it was an amazing thing. Let me tell you how that happens now.